Hi guys, it's
Lauren Daisy.
Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a video which you guys have been asking for a long time. So I'm super excited to finally sit down and do this video today. In this series, we have done ranking all of Serena, Dan, Blair, Chuck, Vanessa, and Jenny's, did I say Nate? Nate's in there too. All of their love interests individually. So I have all those different videos and they're in a playlist that you can go and watch. I also did the same thing for Pretty Little Liars. So today is kind of the finale of the Gossip Girl version of this series. We're going to go through every single couple that has been on the show. If they have flirted, if they have kissed, if they have hooked up, they are in this list. It is not just including like the six main characters? Yeah. No, seven main characters that I just spoke about. We're also going to include like Lily, Rufus, Georgina, Jack Bass, just absolutely everybody that has ever interacted romantically in some way on this show, which means that we have a total of 85 to go through today. So might be a bit of a long one, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. As always, we'll be ranking them from who I believe is the worst up to the best. And as always, I would love for you guys to comment down below and let me know your thoughts, your opinions, who's your favourite couple, who's your least favourite couple, because I just think that's so much fun. So we're going to get straight into it, kind of. I mean, I did just ramble for a little bit, but now we're going to get straight into it with 85, who I feel is the absolute worst of the worst couple-ish, if you can even call them that, in Gossip Girl, and that is Catherine and Marcus Beaton. I feel like with Pretty Little Liars, right, hear me out, we get crazier as we go along. You know, we start off with like, oh, you kissed your sister's boyfriend, and like, oh, you know, you're whatever, like cheat on a test, some shit like that, right? That's where we start in Pretty Little Liars, and we end up at like murder, insane asylums. Like we get like, it's crazy by season 7. Gossip Girl, I feel like wild out the gate. In fact, I think it probably gets less wild as the show goes on. I mean, I killed someone, that's season 1. This weird ass storyline is season 2. I mean, they really were just like wild from the get-go. So Catherine and Marcus come into it in season 2 when Blair is dating Marcus Beaton, and he's kind of like, I don't know, I can't remember, he's like a lord or something, or I think it might be a lord. So they're like quite a high profile family and you know, very wealthy, and so Blair is like interested in him and starts dating him. Now, while this is happening, Nate is also dating Catherine, right? Keep in mind that Nate is 17 in this season, I'm pretty sure, maybe 18, like towards the end. And he's dating Catherine. And Catherine turns out to be Marcus's stepmom. And so she is basically blackmailing Nate. So Vanessa then goes and goes to talk to her about it. And she catches Catherine and Marcus hooking up. So stepmother and stepson doing the nasty. Bearing in mind that obviously he's dating Blair. And so we can assume he's around the same age as her, like 17, 18, 19 maybe at a push. So this is just wrong all round. All round. I had to put them at the bottom because not only is there the weird like age dynamic that's going on here, and we know that Catherine is like a full-on predator, but you also then have the power dynamic of the fact that she's his stepmom and like is essentially grooming him. Like we don't know how long this has been going on for. Like we don't know how long Catherine and Marcus's dad have been married. So it's all just very icky, and I feel like they kind of just like make it go away. And as much as I didn't like Marcus's character, I feel like they should have really talked more about that and like the fact that he was actually a victim in this situation, because they kind of just make it seem like, ew, he's like cheating on Blair with his stepmom, but like there's a lot more power dynamic and like gross business going on here. So I feel like they kind of just swept it under the rug because obviously now Blair wasn't involved anymore, which is like fair enough, but yeah. This was messed up. And I feel like nobody talks about how messed up this was. And then at 84, it probably comes as no surprise that I then have Catherine and Nate because, again, the same kind of things apply, really. We have the fact that she was so much older, the fact that it was an affair, like she was married at the time as well. And Nate confides in this woman. Like, he genuinely had feelings for her and wanted to be with her, which just shows the difference in where they were at in their lives and like the maturity of it, because she just saw him like, you know, it was like a kind of like boy toy, I guess, and he actually like had feelings for her and confided in her about where his dad was hiding out, and then she used that against him and blackmailed him into sleeping with her, so that she basically wouldn't rat his dad out to the FBI, which is insanely messed up. And again, I feel like nobody talks about the fact that Nate is a genuine victim. This is so messed up. Like, this is just season 2, and this is so messed up, and Catherine is never brought up ever again. Like, she should have gone to jail, because Nate must have been 17 when this, like, started. Maybe 18, maybe a push, because Dan says that he's 18 a bit further along in season 2. So maybe Nate also turns 18, but this is right at the beginning of season 2, which makes me believe that he is 17 and he is literally being blackmailed into sleeping with this woman. What are we thinking? Maybe late 30s, early 40s, like that kind of range. And no one ever like talks to him about it afterwards. Like, he obviously, Vanessa knows, but it's just, yeah, I feel like poor Nate, like I'm going to do a whole video on Nate, because I feel like his like trauma throughout Gossip Girl is actually so downplayed, and he goes through so much, and the writers just kind of like abandoned him. Like, after season 3, maybe even season 2, they really just like did not give him good storylines. He's so not integral to the plot. Like, you could lift Nate out of Gossip Girl and all of the main stories would basically remain the same after season 2. It's all about Chuck and Blair and Dad and Serena. Like, Nate really just falls to the back in the later seasons. And I think it's such a shame, because they had such a good character with him that they just kind of then turned him into like, I mean, we love Himbo Nate. I love Himbo Nate. But that's kind of all he becomes in the later seasons. So yeah, and this is just so messed up. Like, why did no one ever check in on this poor boy? At 83, I have Blair and Jack, which was so hard to not put them at the bottom. But I think with the other two, you just had, yeah, the factor of like stepmom, stepson weird dynamic, and then the fact that Catherine goes on to blackmail Nate. Just for me, meant I had to put them lower. But Blair sleeps with Jack, I think, in the break between season 1 and season 2, or in the mid-season break of season 2. So we're talking again 17, 18. And Jack is old. We don't know how old he is, because it's kind of an odd dynamic. Like, the Bass family tree is a weird one, I feel like, because Bart is like old. Like, man's old. No shade, but man's old. So then when you see Jack doesn't look as old as Bart. Like, Bart, I'm feeling, you know, maybe like 60s? Maybe? Like, maybe that's me, like, being harsh, but, like, the man's grey. Like, so I'm thinking 60s, 50s, maybe? Whereas, like, Jack gives more, like, late 30s. You know what I mean? Like, he looks a lot younger than Bart, which I find interesting, like, in the whole dynamic. Like, I wonder if they have different mums or different dads or something like that. But anyway, so he is definitely older. Like, I would say a significant amount older. Like, we're talking, like, probably around, like, the parents' age. But then they make him act as if he's, like, closer to, like younger. But that wouldn't make any sense. Like, they can't be, like, 40 years apart, surely, like, him and Bart. Anyway, he's too old for her, basically, is the gist. And yeah, they end up actually sleeping together. Like, it's not just like a little like kiss or anything. They end up sleeping together. We don't see it. But yeah, it's like during spring break or something like that. I can't remember, like Christmas break. Oh no, I think it's New Year's Eve. I think it's New Year's. Because she says Chuck can never find out what happened between us. And I think she says on New Year's. So yeah, that's kind of like the timeline that we're working with. So I would say like, yeah, mid season 2. Because they have like the winter thing when Bart dies. And that must be around Christmas time. So then, yeah, it would be about mid-season 2. So she probably is about 18, 17, 18. So like they're playing with that whole, oh, it's not illegal thing because the age of consent in New York is 17, but still so weird. And she was so like hopelessly in love with Chuck at this point that she was obviously very emotionally vulnerable. And I just think in that scenario, Jack should have stopped that. I mean, we know he's a sleazeball, but I just think it's icky and it's weird. And then obviously later when he goes on to like the whole thing with the hotel, just adds another like weird layer to this like relationship that they had actually slept together before. And it doesn't add anything aside from like create a bit of a rift between Chuck and Blair. And I just feel like they could have just left it out. Really? They could have just left it out. At 82, I have Rachel and Dan. Again, I mean, just when you rank the couples like this and you have to go through all the worst ones, you're like, wow, there was some really dodgy pairings in this show. But yeah, so we have Dan and Rachel Carr, who was Serena's teacher at Constance in season 2. And while Serena and Dan are dating, like there seems to be a bit of a spark between Dan and Rachel, and he is actually going to act on it, and then like Serena sees and, you know, tells Blair, and it becomes this whole thing, and she almost gets fired and whatever. But then after that, when she thinks she's fired, she actually does hook up with Dan, so we know that she was interested in him and he obviously was interested in her. But again, we're talking about a teacher and a student. She should have known better. She should have stepped in and said, this is not okay. I mean, she literally was being told by everyone this was not okay. That's literally why she almost got fired. So for her to then act on it anyway, I mean, literally the only person that had common sense in this storyline was Rufus. Like, Rufus was like, you cannot do this, and went to Rachel and was like, stay the hell away from my son. And Dan gets annoyed at him, and like, no one really seems to say anything. I mean, Serena's upset when she finds out and she like slaps Dan, but other than that, once again, why does no one check on these boys? Because Nate, like, no one ever talks to him about that. Again, with Rachel, no one ever talks to Dan about the fact that he was literally like, Rachel was a predator, and they make her seem like, oh, she's like cute and young and whatever, but she can't be that young to be a teacher and like have her own apartment and, you know, all this stuff. So yeah, again, we've got another weird power dynamic, and I'm just glad they didn't really take this any further. I mean, the fact that they did actually sleep together again makes it gross and weird, but again, not as many weird dynamics going on as the previous ones. Okay, then at 81, I feel like, again, don't see a lot of people talking about this pairing. I think it's because it's kind of boring, so it just gets kind of pushed to the side. But I have Serena and Ben. Now, in the show, they really try to justify this relationship by showing you that he never actually initiated anything while she was his student, and that she was like in love with him. For me, I feel like the fact that he then does have a relationship with her when he, you know, is then allowed to, makes me feel like there always was something there and that he was interested in her back then, which again, I think is gross and weird. And also, this is like, this is so like fickle compared to what I just said, but like Ben is so boring. Like, no shade to the actor, but Ben for me is one of my least favorite characters in the whole show. He is so dull. So I don't care for his character at all, but then also obviously the fact that he is a good chunk older than her, even still, right? Because he's obviously, when she was at boarding school, she's 15, 16, and he is her teacher, so he's obviously older. Now, we're looking at about 3 years, I think, that has passed since then, maybe 3 or 4. So she's like 19. So he is still a good chunk older than her. And I just think the whole thing is weird. And also his sister, like, he wanted revenge on her. Lest we forget. Like, I know it was a miscommunication because it turned out to be Lily and, like, you know, whatever. But he still, like, was out to get her. And then he still seemed aggressive. Like, when he pushed Damien and, like, he was just weird. And I think if they had just she helped him get out of jail and that was it, I think that would have been a way better storyline. But the fact that they then do go on to date and he is basically, like, bringing her away from her family and, like, the people that she's close to just be close to him, even though he is, like, still seeing, like, Juliet and his mum when they had it out for Serena. Like, it was just all very weird. It was a weird imbalance in that relationship, and I didn't like it. At 80, we have another horrific relationship, and this is William and Ivy. And I cannot stand this one because I think it is just so disgusting. So we obviously have William, who is Serena's dad. So this man is old, okay? I don't think he's as old as Bart, but, like, he's old. And he's a doctor, like, you know, all this stuff. Serena and Eric's dad, okay? Now, Ivy Dickens is obviously who comes into it in season 4 and pretends to be, season 4, and pretends to be Serena's cousin and whatever. So in order for her to be in the same class and, like, the same kind of circles as Lola, who she was pretending to be, because remember they met at, like, a drama camp, she has to be around the same age as her, right? So Lola is younger than Serena a little bit, and is also, by the way, William's child. So we could probably put Ivy in season 4, maybe like 18. Yeah, maybe like 18, 19. So then by season 6, when William and her are dating, she's probably, again, 20, 21. He's dating someone that's the same age as his daughter, and not just that, but has also, like, been friends with his daughters, both of them. And ultimately, he sleeps with her and manipulates her and tells her that, you know, he loves her and they're going to be together, just to get her to basically ruin Lily's marriage with her connection with Rufus, and then her marriage with Bart as well. He does this just to get back at Lily. He uses this 21-year-old girl, makes her, like, think he's in love with her, and then just throws her to the side like she's nothing when he gets Lily back. What the fuck? What the fuck? And I, low-key, am an Ivy defender. Okay? Because I feel like she gets a bad rep. And people really hate her character. And I get it. And, like, the show also makes you want to hate her character, but I don't. I feel bad for this woman, okay? Because she is just constantly shat on this show, and I know that she shouldn't have done what she did. But also, she was recruited. Like, she didn't set out to scam these people. I'm not even going to go into it. I'll do a whole video on it. The way they treated that girl was bad, and especially William. At 79, I have Chuck and Jenny. Because obviously they did hook up and all that stuff, so had to include them. But in the pilot, again, Chuck forces himself on Jenny initially, and it's just wrong. It's definitely, I would say, in the top 5 worst things that happened in this show, is that scene between Chuck and Jenny, and then obviously later in season 3, she goes to the Empire looking for Nate because she's really upset, and Chuck is also really upset, and they end up having sex, and then that's what kind of leads Jenny to leave the Upper East Side. And I think this, I wouldn't call it a relationship, but like whatever they kind of had going, it's just really sad ultimately. And I think it's such a shame because Jenny had spoken about how she wanted her first time to be special. That's why she didn't end up sleeping with Damien. But then she goes and her first time is with Chuck, who obviously had traumatized her when she was like 14, and she only does it because she's just so sad and feels so alone. And I love Jenny. I love that bitch. I love her so much. Okay, I'm a Jenny stan, a Jenny defender till the day I die. If she has no fans, I am dead because I love that bitch. Okay, I love her. Go and watch my Jenny Humphrey Deserves Better video because I love that woman. Then at 78, I have Nate and Diana. I mean, at least Nate was a bit older by this point. I think like 21, 20. No, I think 21. So there's that, I guess, if you want to clutch at straws. But again, you know, Nate really liked her and wanted to be with her. And she just kind of messed him around. She had another boyfriend. It turned out it was all like a plot with Nate's grandfather to like give him the Spectator, and I don't know, again, just leaves a bad taste. And Diana like Loki slays, okay? I'm not even going to deny that. She's kind of an icon because she is just a evil mastermind. It's crazy. So I think she is still a good character for the show, but I think her whole thing with Nate could have kind of been left out. Like, them being in a relationship doesn't really add much, I don't think, anyway. At 77, I have Eric and Asha because, I mean, this was only one episode in season 1. Yeah, only one episode in season 1 when Jenny dates this guy called Asha, and obviously he is just using her basically to kind of hide the fact that he is gay, but he is very insecure about it, very, you know, a lot of internalized homophobia, and Eric is revealed to be the person that he is hooking up with, but when it kind of comes out, he is really horrible to Eric. I think it's a weird one as well because they basically out this guy. Like, Asher obviously isn't a great guy, but also they just out him on Gossip Girl, like, before he's really ready. So I understand him being, like, upset, but then also he's really, really horrible to Eric, which just isn't justified. So, yeah. And it's a shame because it seemed like Eric actually did like him. At 76, I have Rufus and Ivy, which is just scarred my brain forever. That scene when Dan, like, walks in on them. You just can't unsee it. You just cannot unsee it. Just limbs everywhere. And I don't like this one, again, because I think Rufus is definitely too old for her. Yes, she is like 20, 21, but to me that still doesn't really make it right. I mean, Rufus is obviously like in his 40s. Like, it's not the worst we've seen. We've definitely seen worse. But I still think he should have, like, put a stop to that. And it just ruined Lily and Rufus, which just, that's my couple, those are my guys. So didn't like that. And then also, obviously, she isn't into him. Like, she, again, you know, manipulates him, makes him think that she is really into him, and then it turns out that it's all just a plot to get back at Lily. So yeah, again, unnecessary. At 75, I have Serena and Trip because I hate this so much. Obviously, Trip is married, and then she kind of initially is like, oh, I shouldn't do this, but then, like, just does anyway, and, like, goes away with him. And I just feel like, I think even Blair says, like, what does he want with a 19-year-old girl? Like, literally, he's gonna leave his wife and sacrifice his political career, and, like, he's at, like, House Senate or something, I can't remember, whatever he's running for. So this man is older, like, he's obviously been to school, he is married, like, all this stuff in order to grow in his political party and whatever. So he's obviously older. And yeah, Serena's like 19 in season 3. So the fact that he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to leave my wife and my whole, like, I don't care if I sacrifice my career for this 19-year-old girl is weird. It is weird. And like, I don't blame Serena because she, well, a little bit because she knew that he was married, but also like she's 19. So she just really liked this guy, and he was the one that was all like, you know, I'll risk everything for you and all this stuff. And then he literally leaves her for dead, crashes the car, moves her body, which you are not supposed to do if someone has been in an accident, literally could have killed her, and then flees the scene and makes it look like it was her that crashed that car on her own. I can't believe that I have Serena and a literal attempted murderer, like, at 75 out of 80. That just shows you how bad some of these couples are. At 74, I have Serena and Gabriel came into it in season 2. And basically, he's just a con artist. That's the gist. And again, definitely quite a bit older than her. So weird again. And also, he's played by Armie Hammer, and all my homies hate Armie Hammer. So yeah, that probably brings him down like quite a bit. Like in reality, maybe he wasn't as bad, but At 73, I have Serena and Julian, because this was absolutely never going to work because he is gay. And again, even if he wasn't, too old for her. He's the director of her school play. At 72, I have Agnes and her photographer boyfriend, because I cannot remember his name. Is it like Alex or... Basically, I think he was also too old for her. And the fact that he was like taking pictures of her and Jenny when Jenny was only like 15, like in their underwear and stuff, that was weird. That was messed up. At 71, I have Lily and William, and the fact that they end up together boils my blood, because what the fuck? What the fuck? This is the worst, one of the worst men on this show. Like, truly, truly one of the worst men on this show. He is manipulative. He is, like... He cons his way back into her life twice. The first time by telling her she had cancer when she didn't, so that he could continue to look after her. Messed up. The second time was when he used Ivy to basically break up her marriages and worm his way back in. So the fact that he was with Lily in the end, no. And not to mention the fact that when they were married, like prior to when the show starts, he cheats on her with her sister and gets her pregnant, and then abandons them all when Serena's like 4 years old, I think. 5 years old, maybe. I think Eric was like 2 or 3. So Lily deserves so much better than this man. I can't believe that's who they had to end up with in the end. I hate this couple. I hate it so much. At 70, I have Nate and Sage. And Sage is a character I actually did quite like. I thought she was fun. I thought she was very like, you know, like queen bee, like head bitch in charge, like that kind of vibe. So I did like her for that. I do not like her with Nate. I think obviously initially she says that she's older than she is, but I think when Nate found out that she was only 17, he should have put a stop to that right away. And I think it's a shame because, like I mentioned, Nate was like preyed upon by older women. And then instead of like recognizing that cycle, he just then dates someone that, again, I mean, it's not like insane. It's not the same age gap, obviously, between like him and Catherine, because I think Nate is like 21, 22, but Sage is still 17. So I'm like in high school. So I think it was just a weird dynamic. I think he should have cut it off when he found out. Because, yeah, they do, like, sleep together and everything. And then he literally says, in the season finale, when the police come to talk to them, he says, she's a minor, you can't speak to her. Like, did that not gross you out when he said that, Nate? Like, you're sleeping with her, but you literally have to say to the police officer, she's a minor. At 69, I have Jack and Elizabeth, because this is just a weird dynamic to me all round. Like, she... she wanted her son to believe she was dead. Okay, wanted her son to believe she was dead. How did Jack even find her, firstly? And enough for them to form enough of a relationship that she believed that Jack loved her. Why would you go back to the uncle of the son you don't want to know you exist? Wait. That came out wrong, but I think you understand what I mean. Why would she get that close to the family again? And Jack just manipulates her and uses her to get Chuck's hotel like it was all a lie. But then also there's that picture of it, like, there's that picture that she sends, like, of her pregnant and the arm around her is Jack's. So, like, what the hell was all that about? Anyway, weird. Like, were they having an affair, like, while she was with Bart? I don't think they ever clarify that. But yeah, weird. I mean, if it had come out that he was actually Chuck's dad and they were really, like, in love and all this stuff, but Bart wanted to hide it because, like, of embarrassment or something, like, maybe that could have then worked, if, like, with them as a couple. But the fact that it's not real and it's just Jack, like, lying to her is just, yeah. At 68, I have Eleanor and Harold. Obviously, they were, like, married for a very long time, but then he goes on to, you know, realize that he's gay, or maybe he knew the whole time. They don't really say. So obviously they were never going to work out. And he does also cheat on her, which is a real shame because I feel like, why do people cheat? Why don't people just leave? Anyway, not going to get into it. And he obviously goes on to be with Rowan and Eleanor, and like kind of leaves Eleanor and Blair, which is like, I think definitely has a really big impact on Blair and like her character and why she is the way that she is. 67, I've Dan and Amanda. And you might be like, who the hell is Amanda? Amanda is a girl that Chuck pays to basically flirt with Dan and go out with him in order to turn Serena back into the queen bee and like head bitch kind of vibe, so that then Blair will feel threatened by Serena. Like, it was all a weird, elaborate plan for Chuck to get back at Blair. So yeah, she didn't actually like him or have any interest in him. I don't even know if she went to, I don't even think she went to Constance. But compared to the other people on this list, I mean, I was like, I guess they're better than that, sort of. At 66, I have Jenny and Damien, because it was quite clear that Damien never really cared about Jenny. He obviously used her for his drug deals, and she really genuinely liked him and wanted to be with him. So that was really sad. They do have one kiss, I think, or two. And then obviously they are going to sleep together, but then she decides that she's not really ready, and he basically just calls her a kid and leaves, which again was just like really sad. Like, this is just how Jenny goes like down her like spiral. So he was not good enough. He's not good enough for my girl Jenny, okay? But I feel like they are more interesting than the other couples I've talked about so far. 65, I have Jenny and Asher. I've already talked about Asher. He's a bit of a dickhead, but he was never actually horrible to Jenny. Like, they were never going to work because obviously he wasn't interested in girls, but he never pressured her in the way that Damien did, so I felt like he was still a little bit better, like a fraction, I guess. At 64, I have Vanessa and Paul, and he is like a theatre guy that she kind of dates very briefly in season 3 while they're at NYU. And I mean, they seemed fine. She quite liked him. Like, I think he even met her mum, but then obviously she goes on to leave him because she realizes that she's in love with Dan. At 63, I have Nate and Bree. So Bree Buckley comes into it, I think also in season 3. And honestly, I just find this couple so incredibly boring. They basically just use each other to like get back at their families because their families are feuding, like the Buckleys and the Archibalds. Or no, the Buckleys and the Vanderbilts, I think. And yeah, I just found them so boring. I did not care for them. She then just uses him to like get back at Carter, and their relationship just kind of dissolves into nothing. And it's just kind of dull. At 62, I have Lily and Steven. What the fuck? Like, she literally which, to be fair, she had him first. Like, she'd slept with him first, and then he obviously goes on to date Serena, not realizing that they were related. She obviously, thought he was cute, so they ended up hooking up, but nothing else happened. At 61, I have Jenny and Graham. Graham Collins, she literally just really wants to go out with him and wants him to be her, escort? Escort? Is that what they say? To Cotillion, to the debutante ball. And he's kind of like the hottest guy on the Upper East Side, so she really wants to go with him. He then ends up going with somebody else because Eric blackmails him into basically outing him again. Don't love that from you, Eric. But yeah, I mean, he kind of Eric said he wasn't a nice guy, but then I mean, nothing seems like that wrong with him. I think it's Erica, the girl that he goes with or something, says, oh, I know Graham, he lives in my building. And she doesn't say that he's horrible. So I don't really know what was the deal there. But we never actually see them interact, so what could have been, I guess. At 60, I have Chuck and Elle. Again, I don't like them because I don't like this storyline. Chuck, again, this is season 2 we're talking about. So season 1? No. Season 2. He goes to this gentleman's club that his dad used to go to. So why is he doing that? He's 17, 18, a gentleman's club, Jesus Christ. And meets this girl Elle, and then she basically just ends up manipulating him and using him to get money and get out basically. And that's it. And I'm just not a fan of this whole storyline. At 59, I have Russell and Lily. And while we don't ever actually see them, as a couple, we know that they did hook up or, we're kind of seeing each other before Lily starts dating Bart in season 1. So we're talking about, around, I think, when Serena was in boarding school, maybe she was with Russell. And honestly, I feel Russell's, evil. So it wouldn't have worked, but it could have been a little bit of a power couple. He was obviously kind of her, type with the whole, business, a business mogul or some shit, rich, powerful, all that stuff. So I feel had he not turned out to be evil, maybe that could have worked a little bit. At 58, I have Blair and Marcus. I don't think they would have worked because she wasn't interested in him. He was just a rebound from Chuck, and she only became interested in him when she found out that he was a lord. So that was just a bit shallow on her part. And obviously, he then is cheating on her with his stepmom. So all very weird dynamic going on there. Yeah, at least he was the right age for her. And he was a victim himself, bless him. So yeah, but the chemistry just wasn't there with those two, regardless of all that. At 57, I have Dan and Willa. Willa is a student at NYU that hits on Dan, and he kind of kisses her and is kind of entertaining the idea of dating her, but it's just to avoid his feelings for Vanessa, kind of similarly to Paul. But Willa was cute, she's fine. Maybe they could have worked, but again, we're getting kind of to the more meh couples now, where I don't really have a huge amount bad to say about them, but I don't really have anything good to say about them either. At 56, I have Beatrice and Father Cavalia. I think that's how you call it. I think that's how you say it. And he was obviously the evil priest that she was dating. And together they were kind of trying to ruin Blair and Louise's marriage, but then he ends up turning on her anyway. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's a kind of evil power couple. They worked, and then he just turns on her anyway. So at 55, I have Chuck and Alessandra. Again, just no chemistry here whatsoever, and he is kind of just using her to sabotage Dan's book. And Alessandra as a character, I kind of find a bit boring anyway. I don't know, I just never really invested in her. At 54, I have Dan and Ivy, which you might forget that they even were romantically involved, but she, I think, again, just used him. I don't think she actually liked him. She was just kind of playing her role of crazy cousin Lola, or Charlie. and had to make it seem like she wanted to take over Serena's life. She wears her dress and obviously takes Dan to this party that they're going to. So I think it was all just kind of part of that plot. Like, she didn't really like him. But he did kind of seem to like her. Maybe she did like him, but then ultimately she had to use him for this, like, evil plot. I don't know. I want to get to, like, couples that I want to talk about again, because these ones I just have nothing to say because they're kind of, like, boring, or, like, nothing really happened there. At 53, I have Nate and Jordan. So Jordan is a girl that Nate is kind of, like, trying to get with when they go and visit Yale. She's a teacher there, or, like, a teaching assistant or something. So again, probably a little too old for him. But she was a cutie, and he also lies to her about his name because he doesn't want her to know that he's Nate Archibald. He tells her that he's Dan Humphrey. So yeah, that one, like, wasn't going anywhere, but she was very pretty. At 52, I have Serena and Damien. And this is purely, like, before. Like, they were never going to work after, but I do think him kind of being, like, the nerdy tutor, like, he was really sweet and he did really like her. And I think it's a shame that Serena was still, like, in her party girl phase, because they actually could have been kind of cute if she had actually genuinely, like, taken an interest in him once she started to kind of become the new Serena, I guess. But yeah, she just didn't really, she obviously just kind of, like, used him to do her homework and stuff, which was a shame because he actually seemed really sweet until I feel like Serena and that whole situation kind of turned him more sour to the Damien that we then meet in season 3. At 51, I have Blair and Cameron, and this is a guy that she dates after her and Chuck break up, and ultimately she kind of, like, breaks up with him because she's still in love with Chuck. Not a lot to say, I feel like, on these two because they don't date for very long. I think it's like 2 episodes that we kind of see him. But, you know, he was fine. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy. And sometimes in these shows, that's all you can ask for. At 50, we have Howard, obviously the captain, and Anne Archibald. As, you know, kind of like parent couples go, they're not one of my favorites. I find the Archibalds to be quite boring, to be honest with you, especially Anne. Can't stand her. And, you know, she defends Howard way, way, way too much. And I think they end up getting a divorce anyway, but it was kind of sweet that he wanted to buy her the house that she had always wanted. I did think that was a really sweet plot line. But yeah, I feel like that marriage was kind of, like, doomed from the start when we first met them. At 49, I have Nate and Ivy, because I think they actually could have been a cute couple. I think it was weird that obviously, well, she wasn't really Serena's cousin, but as far as Nate knew, she was. So for him to kind of go out with her after not that long after dating Serena was a bit weird. But yeah, I feel like they actually could have been really cute together. Like, they looked really good together. And like I said, I feel bad for Ivy, and I think deep down she was a good person. Like, so I do think maybe they actually could have worked in another life. At 48, I have Serena and Max, and Max is Ivy's ex-boyfriend that then, like, comes to New York looking for her and kind of runs into Serena. And obviously he goes on to not be the nicest character, but also he does feel very betrayed by Ivy and, like, shocked at the kind of lie she's living. And he just kind of ends up wanting money, really. But I think before that, him and Serena were actually kind of cute. Like, she shows him around New York, and I don't know, like, he offers to bake the cake, but it's more because of, like, he knows that Ivy's gonna be there. But she seemed to really like him, and it brought, like, a kind of, like, cutesy side to Serena that we hadn't seen for a long time with her. So I think maybe they could have worked. At 47, I have Rufus and Lisa Loeb? Loeb? I'm not really sure. I had no idea who this woman was. I'm gonna be so real with you. No offense to this woman, but if I saw her walking down the street, I wouldn't know a thing. I thought like Rufus was just with a random woman, like that they had just put in there in the time jump. But then in my Ultimate Gossip Girl video, people actually left comments saying that her name was Lisa and that she is in the first season. She's like the person that introduces Rufus's like Lincoln Hawk's like reunion show, you know, the one that like everything kicks off at because Georgina's there. Like she's the one that introduces that, I think. And she is someone like in the music world, I believe I really should have Googled her before I started talking about her. So yeah, I feel like they make sense. We don't see them together aside from like right at the end. So it's kind of hard to judge, but obviously they are together and they appear to be endgame, so good for them, I suppose. You know, they're both into music and stuff. So at 46, I have Bart and Elizabeth, because even though Elizabeth, you know, I don't know though, because like, it's hard to know because the way that Chuck talks about it is that Bart was so in love with her and, you know, has kind of held this grudge about him because she died giving birth to him. But then she didn't actually die giving birth to him. But she did, like, leave because she didn't want to raise him. So I wonder if Bart, in turn, still blames Chuck, like, for, like, the downfall of his marriage with Elizabeth. So I think Bart did genuinely love her. I wonder if she had stayed, if things would have been different. Like, if she had stayed and they had raised Chuck together, if he wouldn't have been so cold and kind of turned into the villain that we know, or if he kind of would have always done that. Hard to know. But she obviously didn't love him that much because then she leaves and goes on to fall in love with Jack. So, yeah, I just think it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if she hadn't left, because in, like, Chuck's eyes, he really did love Elizabeth. At 45, I have Trip and Maureen, because these people deserve each other, okay? These two menaces deserve each other, because Maureen obviously is shady boots because she manipulates, she set up that whole fake drowning thing to make Trip look good, and she goes and she blackmails Serena and all this stuff. And then Trip, as we have mentioned, attempted murderer, piece of shit, just all-round bad guy. I love his actor though, so there's no shade there, but his character is, yeah, just cold and just selfish, absolutely, like, you know, always in it to protect himself. And then he literally is the reason that Blair ends up losing her baby, because he, like, empties the brake fluid on that car. So yeah, these two can stay together forever, as far as I'm concerned. At 44, I have Vanessa and Scott. And Scott is Lily and Rufus's child. He comes into it in season 2. Oh, yeah. I think the very end of season 2, season 3. And he and Vanessa begin dating, and she's kind of the first person to find out the truth about, you know, him being their child. And she did seem to really like him, and he seemed to like her as well. And I thought they kind of had a sweet bond going, and then obviously she's really upset when he has to leave. So yeah, I feel like they kind of had potential, but also I wasn't really feeling the chemistry between them. I don't know if that was just like the actors didn't really gel, but she did seem to really like him and care about him. At 43, I have Serena and Aaron, and it pains me that I have them this high, because you know how I feel about Aaron Rose. I cannot stand that man. I cannot stand that man. And I've been reading the books to, you know, well, just because I wanted to read them, also to make videos for you guys. I've made a video on the first book if you want to go and watch that. But as I've been, like, reading them and seeing Aaron's character in the books, I'm like, why did they do him this dirty in the show? Because I like his character in the books, at least so far. So yeah, I just don't really get the direction they went in with his character. Is very weird for the show. I don't like him, and I don't like him and Serena. He literally is just like, oh, you know, like basically cheating on her while they're like talking. I guess technically they aren't like exclusive, but whatever. And then then when he does like try and commit to her, she wants to go back to Dan. So yeah, I just don't care for this couple. I do not care for this couple at all. At 42, I have Carol and William. Kind of for similar reasons I have Trip and Maureen, because these two deserve each other. Oh my God. Like if they had stayed together, like if they had gotten back together after, you know, everything came out about Lola being his, that could have been an evil power couple for the ages. That would have been insane. But then the fact that he just goes back to Lily after that is like, but they were both so devious that had they combined their powers, like towards the end of the show, I think it could have been something. At 41, I have Rufus and Allison, because obviously they did love each other. They were together for a long time, but then she starts seeing this Alex guy and is really into him. And Rufus has kind of always had this love for Lily that I guess he never really let go. So when they do try and work it out, they kind of realize they're never going to be able to work it out, and it's kind of like done. But they're obviously together for a really long time before that. Yeah, I didn't feel right putting them like really low on the list. So they're kind of, yeah, in my like meh tier that we're going through at the minute. I just realized that I had a couple down twice, which has now bumped everybody up one. So it's actually like 84-1. But I can't go back and change it all. So we're just going to keep going, and we're going to skip over 40, and we're going to go straight to 39, which is Nate and Juliet. Nate and Juliet is a weird one, because I think she genuinely did start to really like him. But obviously at that point, she was already way too far in her revenge plot with Serena, and Nate was kind of never going to forgive her after that. So she kind of just had to go for it. I don't know. I still didn't really feel it, to be honest. I don't know. I just didn't feel like the chemistry was really there. I really like Juliet as a character, like as a villain kind of character. But yeah, I don't know. Her and Nate just never really properly gelled for me. At 38, I have Serena and Steven, because I don't even know why. This is the thing. Once we get to these ones that I don't care about, I have nothing to say about them. Like, he was nice to her and she was happy with him. But again, she's like 20, 21. Like, he's like late 30s, early 40s. Again, we're kind of getting into like you're really just going to marry her? Like, when she's not that much older than your daughter. But yeah, I mean, she did really like him, and he was kind of able to help her, you know, host these galas and things. And so I was very neutral on him. Like, I was like, I'm not really that fussed, but he's fine. But then when he comes back in the Thanksgiving episode, he's like a real dick. Like, he's really horrible to Dan and then to Serena. And it just felt like a weird kind of 180 on his character. So yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. At 37, I had Poppy and Gabriel. Again, in that similar vein, where I think they were like con artists together. So it kind of worked as a kind of evil couple. And I think he then, you know, tried to play it off like he actually really was into Serena, but he, like, I don't know. I still don't know if he really was or if he was just trying to like make it sound better. But then she turned on him anyway. And I don't know. I think he was obviously, like, Armie Hammer was never going to come back to that show because there was, like, behind the scenes, like, drama with him. But if he had been played by somebody else, I think then when she comes back in season 6, if he had also come back and they had still been a couple, maybe that could have worked. At 36, I have Ivy and Max, because I actually think they were really sweet. Like, when we first see them and she's working at the restaurant and they have this little flat and he wants to be a chef, like, they were cute. They were cute, okay? And then she obviously, you know, breaks up with him and just kind of messes him around and then says, oh, I'm going to be with you. And then she's not again. And then that whole thing. And he obviously, you know, then tries to get his revenge. So it was just never going to work. But I did think they were really cute in the beginning. At 35, I have Nate and Lola. For me, they're kind of just boring. I didn't see the chemistry there. But at least, you know, I don't even have a but at least. They were just fine, I guess. He really liked her. Again, I think it's weird dating your ex's cousin, but whatever. That's, you know, par for the course in this show. Like, I think that's the thing I find with Nate's love interest. They're either, like, wrong for him or his relationships are boring. I just didn't really like Lola as a character. I found her kind of irritating. And also when Nate was with her, I found him irritating. So I guess they did kind of work in that aspect. At 34, I have Alison and Alex because she obviously really liked this guy and he also really liked her. So, you know, they're probably living happily ever after in Hudson. And you know what? Good for them. It shouldn't have happened in the way that it did. She should have just left Rufus before she started seeing this guy. But, you know, they're fine. I'm neutral. At 33, I have Eleanor and the man from the Roman Holiday episode. I don't remember his name. I think it was like Jack. Maybe. But they were cute. Okay, they were cute. Not that anyone could be better suited for Eleanor than Cyrus, but they were cute. Okay, I thought they were cute. Like, he was like really into her and, you know, trying to flirt with her and she didn't really realize it at first. And then Roman invites him to the holiday party and then they end up hooking up. And I was like, I thought it was kind of a shame that he never came back because they were actually really well suited. At 32, I have Bart and Lily. I felt like I couldn't put them that much lower because they are kind of an iconic couple. They are together for like a good amount of the show. But obviously, Bart's evil. And when Lily's with Bart, she's like my least favourite version of Lily, with how she kind of treats Serena and Eric and just kind of disregards them for Bart. And the fact that she ended up choosing him over Rufus was so dumb. Like, they're kind of iconic, you know, like Lily Bass and all that. And obviously their relationship then leads to the Lily-Chuck dynamic, which I do think is a really sweet one. But yeah, I'm not like hugely fussed about them, but I feel like they are pretty iconic to the show, so I put them a bit higher up. At 31, I have Jenny and Wes, and he's literally only in it for one episode, but bless her heart, he was one of the best love interests she ever had because he was actually a nice guy. That is how low the bar is for poor Jenny Humphrey. He was a nice guy. She was doing a science project with him or something, and they just played Monopoly, and he said that he really liked her, and it was just cute. It was just a cute little date that they had, and I thought it was a shame that he didn't come back after that because he was kind of the only one, aside from obviously Nate, that was actually nice to her out of all her like love interests, if you can even call them that. At 30, I have Rufus and Bex, and Bex is the art, well, I don't even really know what she is. She's like an art seller or something, like that works with his gallery, and they were cute. I thought they were cute. Bex was so pretty, and I actually really liked their dynamic. You know, she was very flirty with him, and I would have no shade to Lisa, okay? No shade to Lisa. But I would have much preferred if Bex was the person that he was with in the time jump because we got to see a bit more of her. And they did have good chemistry, so I actually quite liked them together. At 29, I have Eric and Jonathan because they were so, so cute, and they only break up because Eric just gets way too consumed in trying to take Jenny down as Queen Bee that Jonathan kind of doesn't really recognize him anymore. And I thought it was a shame because they were really cute and I kind of wish they could have found their way back to each other. At 28, I have Chuck and Raina. I loved Raina, okay? She's one of my favorites. I loved her and I wish she would have stayed for longer. I think her and Chuck had some really sweet moments, but obviously it started off as him just wanting to like use her to kind of save Bass Industries, so we don't love that. But they did have some sweet moments, like when they were talking about how they both had lived in hotels growing up and they obviously both didn't have their mums anymore. So I felt like they did have some really sweet heart-to-hearts, and it was nice to see Chuck opening up to somebody that wasn't, you know, like Nate or Blair. So that was kind of nice, and like she was very much independent and I loved that about her. And she didn't take any of Chuck's shit. So yeah, I think not the best pairing for her. We have a better one coming up, but I really liked Raina, so I think that brings this couple up more. At 27, I have Bart and Diana because while they weren't an official couple, they obviously did hook up because she's in like his file or something. I can't remember. And she obviously is like helping him to stay hidden while he's like dead. And again, we could have had like an iconic evil power couple going here if when he came back, she stayed with him, like he didn't go back to Lily, if they had been like a couple and had been like debuted as like this kind of like couple where she had the spectator and he, you know, was running his business and she used it to give him good, like, I don't know, something like that. Like if they had been like, yeah, I don't know, like an evil power couple, I feel like that could have slayed. At 26, I have Howard and Roman because I actually think these two are really cute. We don't get to see them often, but I do think they were really cute in like the Roman holiday episode, and they obviously just like they're living their best life in France with a cat, and like Blair goes to visit them and stuff, and I just think they're kind of cute. At 25, I have Georgina and Dan, which is just such a ridiculous one, but I think I definitely didn't like them in season 1. I thought, you know, obviously she was like manipulating him and she did it to just get back at Serena. When they actually had hooked up properly in season 3, when they were both at NYU, I was kind of like, this is an interesting dynamic, and kind of wanted to see where it went a bit more. But then obviously he kind of backs out the whole thing. And then they had this like whole frenemies act going in like season 6 when she helps him with his book. And I don't know, I just thought the chemistry between them was hilarious. They were just so funny. So I wouldn't have been mad at it. At 24, I have Georgina and Chuck. And you might be thinking to yourself, when did they ever interact? Hardly ever on the show, but Chuck does say that he lost his virginity to Georgina. And if they had kept Chuck on his like evil streak, I think, again, we could have had a very evil power couple vibe with Georgina and Chuck in their kind of like meddling and like scheming. I think that could have worked. If they wanted Chuck to be a true villain, then pairing him up with Georgina, I think could have been a really interesting like dynamic to explore, even if it was only briefly. At 23, I have Dan and Olivia. And Olivia came into it in season 3. She was played by Hilary Duff. And she was like a superstar actress that just wanted like a normal life at NYU. And that's where Dan meets her and they start dating. And I did think they were actually pretty cute together. I quite liked their couple. Like I knew they weren't obviously going to be together forever because Hilary was kind of like more of a guest star kind of vibe. But I actually did like them. I thought they were sweet. And yeah, I don't know. They kind of had like cute moments, and it was kind of an interesting dynamic to see like Dan dating a celebrity when obviously his whole role is that he's like the outsider. But then ultimately he realizes that he's in love. Well, she realizes that he's in love with Vanessa, and that's kind of how they break up and leave things. But I kind of do wish they'd brought her back. I think that would have been fun. At 22, I have Blair and Carter, and we don't see them together properly. They just kind of are like hooking up when she's in her rebellious phase. But they made such a cute couple, and I think they had such great chemistry because Leighton and Sebastian dated in real life. And I think that really like comes through on screen, that they had that kind of natural chemistry. So I think it would have been fun to see her properly date him, not just like for an episode, I think it is, or 2. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that would have been a fun dynamic to explore more, that like rebellious side of Blair. We do only see it for 1 episode, I think it is. At 21, I have Georgina and Philip, and I think these two are just hilarious. Like their dynamic is so funny. The fact that he's like really good with Milo, and like she kind of trusts him to like use Gossip Girl when she's not there. Like it's just, their whole dynamic is just so weird, but it's top banter. And I thought actually, I mean, she obviously was just kind of like using him, but if she had actually like properly been with him, I think that would have been like just a weird little dysfunctional family unit. At 20, I have one that basically didn't even happen, but in my mind would have been such a good couple. And this is Vanessa and Olivia. And they do hook up. Obviously, they have the threesome with Dan, Olivia, and Vanessa. And I would have really loved if this would have sparked a relationship between Olivia and Vanessa, because we don't, kind of LGBT plus representation on Gossip Girl kind of solely comes from Eric. So I think it would have been nice to see like if Vanessa had been like bisexual, I think that would have been a nice bit of representation to have in the show. So I think her then being with Olivia, I thought they had a great chemistry. I thought they had 10 out of 10 chemistry. Better than he had with Olivia for sure. Like better than Dan and Olivia, Vanessa and Olivia. 100%. So I feel like it could have worked. And the writers should have given it to us. At 19, I have Chuck and Vanessa, and they only had a one night stand, but I actually really enjoyed their dynamic, because she kind of was skeptical of him, and initially it was a bit of a scheme, but then he actually became really invested in that bar, and she kind of got to see his and Bart's dynamic and started to kind of feel for him. And yeah, they do end up sleeping together. And again, I think this would have been a fun dynamic to explore rather than just for one episode. Jessica and Ed also dated in real life. So again, similarly to Blair and Cara, I think you get that just natural chemistry that works really well on screen. And I think that, yeah, I feel like it just would have been fun to see them maybe date for a little bit longer. If he would have like taken her to parties and things, you know, she would have been really in that Upper East Side world in a way that she wasn't really when she was with Nate, because he was kind of coming more over to like the Brooklyn side. Whereas she would have been really in that Upper East Side world if she had been dating Chuck. At 18, I have Serena and Colin, and he did start out as her professor, and she would have been 20, I think, 19, 20 maybe. So that's not great, but I do think they had really, really good chemistry, and he actually seemed like a genuinely nice guy, and he was willing to like leave his job for her and everything. But then she ditches him for Dan. This man literally loses his job or like quits it or whatever to be with her. And then she's like, actually, I've changed my mind. I want to be with Dan. So there was that. But I thought, yeah, their chemistry was really, really good. And I think out of everyone, he was actually a really good partner for her. So I think, yeah, the fact that Dan and Serena don't even really get together after this anyway feels kind of like pointless for her and Colin to have broken up so quickly. At 17, I have Blair and Louis. Now hear me out, okay? Obviously, this relationship ends very, very badly. Louis is kind of like, they make it like he's revealed to be evil, but I don't think he really was. I think he genuinely loved Blair and cared about her, and she just messed him around too many times. And then, you know, he snaps. But for a little while there, he was her Prince Charming. I mean, I didn't really feel the chemistry between them, I won't lie. But like when he shows up with the shoe, and he does do some really sweet things for her, and he's so excited when, you know, they're going to get married and they're going to have a baby. And so I do think he was a genuinely good guy until the Upper East Side kind of ruined him. So yeah, I did think they were really sweet before obviously everything changed. At 16, I have Blair and Nate, because I did like them. I thought they were fun. I just really like their relationship arc, like their complete relationship timeline. I like that we had them kind of like struggling through that, and then they get back together, and then Blair ultimately realizes, one, her self-worth, but two, that Nate is just her high school boyfriend and he's not meant for forever, but he was, you know, kind of the perfect one for her in that point in her life. And I just really loved that realization. And then they go on to just be friends, and they have a really kind of hilarious dynamic there. So I just really liked their couple. Not that I wanted them to be endgame or get back together or anything like that, but I think their time as a couple was really well done. Now I'll bring you to the top 15. So at 15, I have Chuck and Eva, or Ava, I can't remember. And she is obviously the girl that finds him and like kind of nurses him back to health after he is shot. And he's going to kind of just live with her in France, pretending to be somebody else. But then he decides to bring her back to the Upper East Side. And it's just not really her world. I think she was so sweet, and she genuinely seemed like just a nice person. I think she may be potentially the only genuinely nice person on this show that didn't do anything bad. And she was really, you know, wanted to be into charity work, and she was kind of helping Chuck be a better person. And obviously Blair then destroys that. But I do think she could have been in it for longer. And I actually did like her character. At 14, I have Eric and Elliot. And I thought these two were so cute. I thought they were so, so cute. I absolutely loved them. I thought they were adorable. Like, they're kind of like meet cute when they bump into each other. And I guess, to be fair, I guess we do have bisexual representation through Elliot. Actually, I forgot about him. But yeah, And then they get together and we don't see too much of them, but I thought they were sweet and I thought it was a shame that they broke them up. I think they could have just like had him stay with Ellie, even though we don't really see him, and like go to Sarah Lawrence or wherever is the like uni he goes to, and still have been with Elliot, because I just thought they were so sweet together. At 13, I have Dan and Vanessa, and I really liked Dan and Vanessa. I thought they had great chemistry. And I think ultimately what ruins their relationship for me is Dan. He is so weird. He kind of wants to hide it at first. And then when they are dating, he becomes really jealous about her accomplishments and, you know, sets all these rules that we shouldn't talk about this, we shouldn't talk about this. And it was just really weird. But I thought like the kind of slow burn of their relationship was really good. And then when they did like end up getting together. But yeah, I just think the writers didn't really do it justice. I think it could have been really, really good. And yeah, to be honest, I kind of like them. I think if they had ended up together, like been Endgame, I wouldn't have been mad about it. I just don't like that them entering into a relationship does ultimately ruin their friendship and they kind of end up as enemies, strangers, when I really, really loved their friendship. And I thought it was a really great part of the show. At 12, I have Nate and Raina. Like I said, loved Raina. And I actually really liked her and Nate. I thought they were a really good pairing. And I think could have 100% gone the distance if he had ended up with her. Like if he had walked off that plane and she would have walked off behind him. So good. That would have been so good. Because yeah, I really liked her and I thought they were really sweet together. And I think it was a shame that they were only together for a couple of episodes before she left the show. I think they definitely could have kept her. I would have rather he was with her into season 5. Like, no, she is season 5? I think she's season 5. Like, yeah, if he'd have stayed with her like way into season 6, I think that would have been really nice to just see him in a long, consistent relationship and with someone that was genuinely a good match for him rather than any of the like Sage stuff. At 11, I know you guys are going to hate me, okay? I know some of you are going to hate me for this and I'm sorry. I have Blair and Dan, okay? I love their dynamic. I think they're absolutely hilarious together. I love them as friends. Like, because of that, Damien Darko is one of my favorite episodes because of just how hilarious they are together, like working at W. But I don't see them as a couple. I don't know what it is. I thought they were sweet. I even liked when he had his like, you know, crush on her and everything. But when they actually got together, it just wasn't there for me. I wasn't invested in it. I found them kind of boring. And I don't know, I just didn't like it. And I know that a lot of people really do. And I just really like them as friends. And I just wish they had stayed friends because I feel like them getting together kind of messed the whole thing up. Now we're breaking into the top 10, okay? We're almost there, people. We're almost there. So at number 10, I have Serena and Carter. And these are one of my favorites. I really, really loved them. I thought their chemistry was 10 out of 10. And I wanted them to be together for so much longer than they actually were. I think it's such a shame that they, you know, got together and then he left when all she wanted to do was help him, and he ends up kind of taking it as like pity and says that he didn't want her pity and ends up breaking up with her. I thought that was so sad because I really loved their, yeah, like I said, their chemistry. I thought they had really great scenes together, how she believed in him and she trusted him even when Chuck and Blair were like trying to convince her that he was a bad guy. And then he does ultimately own up and tell her the truth rather than like running away. So yeah, I think we had such a good pairing there. If they had only had more time together, I would have really have loved to see that. And she was the one person that he was the one person that she confided in about her dad, and like he helped her find him. So I don't know. I wouldn't have been mad if they were endgame, to be honest with you. At 9, I have Serena and Nate. And I think, again, this is another victim because they could have been everything, I think. And I know that a lot of people do really love them together. I think that kind of slow burn in the beginning and then that we finally got them together in season 3, I was all for it. I loved it. The golden couple, 100%. Throughout that relationship, Nate is never Serena's priority. She always has something else going on and she lies to him quite a lot. and ultimately, you know, kind of still has feelings for Dan at the end of it. So I think they could have been something really good, but they just ended up kind of fizzling out for me personally. But they do have some really, really great scenes together. I mean, the scene when he tells her that he was in love with her and she's the most beautiful alive person he's ever known. Amazing. And the scene with like the strawberries in the kitchen, like chemistry was off the charts. It was off the charts. But in terms of them as an actual couple, I think it just missed the mark a little bit for me. At 8, I have Vanessa and Nate, and I really loved these two together, to be honest with you. I thought they were great. Season 1, I thought they were so, so cute. He encourages her to actually take the SAT so that she can then go to college, and he's really supportive of her, and they have a really sweet dynamic, even though, you know, they don't really have a lot in common. They both really try with each other, which I thought was really sweet. And yeah, I just thought their chemistry was really good, and I really liked them together. And I would not have been mad if they ended up together. I think, obviously, with everything that happened with Vanessa, that was never going to happen. But yeah, I did really like them. I thought they were really, really cute. At number 7, this is such a ridiculous one to have so high up on this list, but I don't care. It's Jack and Georgina, okay? Because talk about a fucking evil power couple right there. They're both hilarious. They both got hilarious one-liners. They're both scheming. They're both calculating. I mean, when they kind of like had them flirt and then be together in the time jump, I was so here for it. I wish we would have seen more of it, because they would have been such a good dynamic to have seen like more consistently, other than just the last episode of the show. At number 6, I have a couple that is near and dear to my heart, okay? And it's Cyrus and Eleanor. I think they are just too freaking cute. I love their wedding. I think it's so sweet. I think just them two, it's pure. It's so pure. Like when Blair meets him for the first time, and like he's so not what you expect, but then he is just loves Eleanor so much and loves Blair so much, and he is just the perfect husband, perfect stepdad. And then when he walks Blair down the aisle and just they move to Paris together, so sweet. At number 5, and now listen, okay, I adjusted this a little bit to kind of, you know, longevity and all that kind of stuff. You know, there was a lot of factors to consider. So in my heart of hearts, this couple is probably higher because I love them so much, but I have put them at number 5. I have restrained myself and put them number 5. It's Nate and Jenny. If you know me, you know I love Nate and Jenny. I adore them as a couple through and through. I love it. I think they had some of the best chemistry on this show. They had some of the best build up on this show. When they kiss for the first time, insane. Amazing scene when he goes and he supports her at the fashion show and all that stuff, and he writes that letter. What we could have had if Vanessa hadn't stolen that letter, because I love them. I adore them. And in my mind, in my Delulu mind, they reconnected at Dan and Serena's wedding, and they are endgame and they are together forever, because I just loved them so much. And putting them at number 5 honestly kind of pained me, but I was like, I can't put them any higher than that because that would just be ridiculous, because they were only a couple for like a couple of episodes, but should have ended up together. At number 4, I have Serena and Dan. And this definitely comes a lot from Serena and Dan in season 1. Those are my babies. Serena and Dan in season 1 is unmatched, okay? If we are just looking at season 1, they would be at the top of my list because they are iconic. They are so cute together. They have just the most pure connection, and she just loves him so much and he loves her so much. So I am happy they ended up together, but I think we definitely got a little lost along the way. But yeah, them in season 1 I just loved, and I think my love of them from season 1 carries them through the whole show for me. And yeah, I do love me some Dorina. I really do. I can't even lie. Now we're breaking into the top 3, and I think the top 3 is going to surprise people. At number 3, I have Blair and Chuck. I mean, I've said it a million times. I think they are one of the best couples in TV. based on the drama, the passion, the chemistry, the way that the way that the actors played them is just insane. They were so well done, so well written. It's just absolutely captivating TV, 100%. I love that they ended up together. I think it wouldn't have really worked for them to end up with anybody else. I just think they are the most iconic couple to come out of that show, and I do love them. I know that they have their toxic moments and people think Blair deserves better, but I think ultimately this show is not about good people. Like, that's kind of the point of the show. And so I think Blair has like really good moments, but I do think ultimately Chuck was the best match for her. And I do love them. I can't even deny it. At number 2, in our runner-up spot, we have Lily and Rufus. I can't even sit down. Lily and Rufus is some of the best chemistry I've ever seen on TV. It is insane. Season 1, when it's like the will they, won't they, amazing. When they kiss for the first time. Then the thing is, it doesn't even fizzle out. It doesn't even fizzle out. When they get married, they're even better. Like, they're so cute and they have so many good scenes. And when he proposes and when they get married, and then they're just adorable scenes, like at the Halloween episode. And I just love them. I love them so, so much. And the fact that they don't end up together physically pains me. It physically pains me that they don't end up together, because what was that about? They broke them up purely to get Serena and Dan back together in the end. You know what? If we had to sacrifice Dan and Serena together to have Lily and Rufus together in the end, I would do it. I would 100% do it. They're so well matched. It's crazy. It's crazy. And now you may be thinking to yourself, with the way that I've spoken about these other couples, Nate, Jenny, Dan, Serena, Chuck and Blair, Lily and Rufus, and how much I love them, you might be thinking to yourself, who's left? Who could have been at the top of this list? My number 1 pick for the best couple on Gossip Girl is Dorota and Vanya. Okay? The thing is, all of these couples, even though I love them so much, Lily and Rufus, like, I love them so much, they have their flaws. Things go wrong. Dorota and Vanya, there is not one bad thing about that couple. Not one. There is not one bad thing about them. They just love each other. Their wedding is one of my favorite episodes. It is so, so good. The way that they talk about each other is so sweet. They then go on to have their 2 babies, like we see in the Gossip Girl like reboot, that they're still together now. So precious. So, so precious. I love them so much. They are just so cute. And I was like, I have to have them at the top of this, because not only do I absolutely love them as a couple, but I cannot say a bad word about them. They never have a rough patch. They never, have toxic moments. They are just pure through and through. And I love that for them. So that is why they are at the top of my list. I feel like the top 5, I feel so good and secure about. I really loved all of them together. So yeah, let me know in the comments. Do you agree with my rankings? Where would you have put different people? Who's your favorite couple? And yeah, I make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.